I know you are a Trump supporter and a lot of the things that he's been doing and his initiatives. Before we kick off, I wanted to get a little bit about your background and how you got started in, well, first I think it was business and then it was in the news industry, correct?
Yes, from the time I was in college, I was really involved in marketing and then entrepreneurship. Those are my loves in life. And I just kind of stumbled into journalism when I was...
And now right now, I mean, Trump, I know they used to use the word the Great Reset and different types of things. Definitely trying to do a lot of resetting. There's a lot of things happening.
Trump's been very clear about what he wants, and I agree with him on every single point. He wants...
And now I know you've interviewed Trump on various occasions. I mean, not that long ago. Can you talk a little bit about, just during your conversations, what were some of the important things that he brought up?
Interviewed President Trump in January of 2023 when he was in Mar-a-Lago. He always showed a really caring side, which is something I'm trying to make sure gets known, that this man cares about this country, he cares about the people. When he meets with the...
Have you seen some changes since you first started kind of being in media and being on TV and writing for the columns and stuff like that? Have you seen a lot of changes?
I have, and I guess one of the reasons I've seen so many changes is I actually went over to...
Hi, I'm Melissa Bill, and you're watching Gold Media LLC. Today joining me is Relentless Bill Robinson. He worked for Newsmax. He is a veteran in the news industry, having won various prestigious awards for his columns and his articles covering stories for Newsmax, Fortune Small Business, and the Wall Street Journal. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Melissa. It's a blessing to be with you.
So I know this is the first time you've been on Gold Media, but we're really excited to have you here. And we're going to get started and talk about some things that are happening. I know you are a Trump supporter and a lot of the things that he's been doing and his initiatives. But before we kick off, I wanted to get a little bit about your background and how you got started in, well, first I think it was business and then it was in the news industry, correct?
Yes, from the time I was in college, I was really involved in marketing and then entrepreneurship. Those are my loves in life. And I just kind of stumbled into journalism when I was doing some PR work that my business did for clients, and just stumbled into it. It's been fun. I've been privileged and blessed to write for some top publications and appear on some top TV broadcast news platforms, and really enjoy being on TV and writing, but I don't enjoy being around journalists much, present company accepted. I really, journalists are a tough lot of people, and I don't find many of them to be quite as interested in the truth as journalism demands, and quite as unbiased as journalism demands. So, a number of political conservative pundits have been saying for a long time, journalism is dead, and that it's really just an arm of the Democrat Party, a supporting group of people that just love the Democrats and despise Republicans. I think there's some truth to that. So I don't hide my who I support or who I vote for, but I'm ready to justify them and my decisions very quickly and talk about President Trump and other great conservatives throughout history.
And now right now, I mean, Trump, I know they used to use the word the Great Reset and different types of things, but I think in Trump, in this presidency, he's definitely trying to do a lot of resetting. There's a lot of things happening. I mean, we have probably, I don't even know, we don't have enough time to discuss everything that's happening, but maybe to kick it off, I mean, today I was actually looking and there's the mail-in voting ballots is the latest initiative that President Trump is trying to do away with. What is your take on that? A lot of people are like, oh, but then it's going to hurt the people that can't get to the voting booths and, it's not fair. But then there was a lot of, and they're saying there wasn't the illegal voting or the, that was going on, that's not true. What is your take on that situation?
Yes, I love the people who say, oh, it's going to hurt the people who can't tie their shoelaces and get on down to the DMV to get a license. Of course, if you go and speak to Black Americans about that, they're like, what are they talking about? They're trying to make us seem like we're incompetent. No, Black Americans know how to get driver's licenses, and they know how to operate computers and go on the internet. So the whole left's pervasive view of minority America is just so messed up. Trump's been very clear about what he wants, and I agree with him on every single point. He wants voter ID. He wants paper ballots. He wants hand-counted ballots. He wants voting only on election day or by previously really required mail-in ballots for the disabled, those in nursing homes, those overseas representing the country in the military. Those are the kinds of mail-in ballots that he wants and the kind that I want. Those aren't suspect. But as President Putin said, as told Trump, and Trump mentioned at Alaska the other day, that was 2020 was an election that was stolen by mail-in ballots because there's absolutely no way of controlling these ballots. And then the other thing is we've got to get rid of these machines. These machines are highly suspect. They went around after they stole the election in 2020. They went around suing the news media that wasn't playing their game and wasn't saying, oh, yes, Trump really lost the election. So if you said that the computers were flipping votes, which is one of the ways they stole the 2020 election, when a Trump voter goes in and votes for Trump and then they flip that vote to Biden, that's a 2-vote net loss to Trump. It's Trump loses a vote and Biden gains one. So this was a very powerful way they used to rig the elections. And then they had servers over in Europe and servers controlled by the Chinese and software that they said was had integrity but didn't. They said it wasn't, the machines weren't connected to the internet. They all were. And so you had multiple feedings of the same ballots into the same machines. So it was really just a horrible thing. And Trump is now standing up and saying that, it's been going on for 4 or 5 years now. We really have to make sure our secure elections are that way and that's an important part of democracy.
Right, because I know even in Texas alone, what was it, 1 million? It was some crazy number that was fraudulent. It was not, and they detected that, and that's amazing because what would that look like on a national level?
Yes. Well, the media, so they betray themselves when they say there's no evidence of fraud in the 2020 elections. There was plenty of evidence. There was video evidence of them pulling ballots out from under desks, hidden under desks in Atlanta's Fulton County. There was big court cases about that. There was tremendous evidence of fraud, including Catherine Engelbrecht's movie about 2,000 Mules, about all the people that were going to these drop boxes for mail-in ballots and just dropping in, a couple of hundred ballots. We're pretty sure we know what's going on. So now the media is all of a sudden starting to play ball and kind of question themselves. Maybe we didn't do such a good job of exposing Joe Biden as brain damaged during his 4 years in the presidency. Maybe we didn't do such a good job of asking the question who was really running the country while this poor man was suffering. And the greatest case of elder abuse we've ever seen. So it's just amazing what the media will resort to. But there's always hope for them. Maybe they'll change. Everybody kind of has their number now. So let's hope that the media starts portraying things in a truthful and realistic way.
And now I know you've interviewed Trump on various occasions. And not that long ago. Can you talk a little bit about, just during your conversations, what were some of the important things that he brought up, that he wanted to address, or things that were the most important topics and things that he really wanted to conquer during this election?
Well, I started interviewing President Trump in January of 2023 when he was in Mar-a-Lago. And I subsequently went to Mar-a-Lago, and that was a real eye-opener because I got to see where our president's been exiled for the last 4 years. And you know what? I'd rather be there than in the White House, frankly. Mar-a-Lago is such an extraordinary place that it was good to see that he was in a place with his family and his friends, and it was his home. It was his castle. And that's where he was for 4 years. I'll give you one example. It's not election related, but it is Ukraine war related. The way my conversations with President Trump went were highly conversational, and he always showed a really caring side, which is something I'm trying to make sure gets known, that this man cares about this country. He cares about the people. When he meets with the angel moms who had their daughters killed and raped by illegal immigrants, he's a caring man. They always come away feeling they have a friend and a supporter in President Trump and somebody who wants to make this country safe again. And so the caring way, he'd always ask how I was doing and always ask about my family and what was going on. Always showed a tremendous amount of care for this voice on the other end of the phone. I subsequently met him about 7 times in the last couple of years, and every time he's just, here's the thing. Nobody here who meets Donald Trump ever comes away with any idea of who Donald Trump is other than liking him. When you meet the guy, you've got to like him. And so he'd start off the conversations by inquiring into how I'm doing. And I'd say, how are you doing? What are the 150 things you're working on? And at one point, we'd talk before the questions, and we'd talk about different things that were on his mind. And then after a while, he'd say, okay, Bill, I'm ready to go. And I'd ask him the questions. And then he'd finish up by saying, Bill, give my very best to your family. And I'd have to say, I'd have to lie to him and say, I certainly will, and they'll be very happy to get your very best, because my entire family is a bunch of Bolsheviks, and they all hate Trump. So, I really had to. But what I said to him was, President Trump, they'll be really happy to hear that. Thank you so much. And so, during one of these times where we were talking before I got into the interview, he said to me, there was a true note of sadness in his tone. He said, "This clown is over in Ukraine, spending all our money, and he's going to get us all killed." And this was when Biden was visiting Zelensky in Kiev. And what it really shows is, care for America, care for what was going on for the war, his strong belief that the war was unnecessary and just an absurd thing to have happen, and his regard for all the people who were getting killed, Russian and Ukrainian soldiers and Russian and Ukrainian citizens. He cares about the people. And so that's a side of Trump that isn't very well known. I went into these interviews kind of thinking, okay, he's got a big ego. He deserves to have a big ego. It's going to be hard to get a word in edgewise. He's not going to show a lot of care for me or my family or anything. All of that turned out to be untrue and part of the Trump derangement syndrome, kind of general hatred of the Democrat communist left towards anybody who wants to make America great. So, it's been the privilege of a lifetime to interview President Trump. It really has.
And now, have you always classified, because a lot of people have switched, parties or whatever. Have you always been Republican?
I always have been. I always have been, except when I was 13, before I could vote. I used to ride my bicycle down and campaign for George McGovern, volunteer for George McGovern. But that was only because Nixon was in the White House, and I was young, and I think I was, bombarded by the media constantly, Watergate and everything. It just seems, Nixon seemed like such a bad guy. Now, of course, as an older person, you hear more of the story and you realize Nixon was just the victim of a vicious Democrat left. They had to get him out of there. And so they really just did everything they could to get him out of there, and they succeeded. Very similarly to President Trump. They've done everything they could to get him out of there, except they failed.
That's true. And now you've been, because you came from the business side, but then you had an interesting story of getting into the media, where you were actually, being a kind of it was like a correspondent at first. Was it on some certain things you had been brought on certain topics? I think one of them you had, pitched yourself on a topic. And what
That's
was
right.
that?
I was pitching a client to appear on CNN, and when I was on hold waiting for the time, I thought to myself, you should be pitching yourself to appear on CNN as well. That way you can get your clients' stories into the media. Once you start becoming a guest on CNN, you'll know the bookers and the producers. It'll help you get your clients on CNN and talk about their companies and their interesting technologies, etc. Help grow their companies. So that was the way I initially fell into it. But it was really, I was trying to get a regular column with Fortune, and they were telling me they'd never heard of me and hanging up on me and stuff. So finally I decided to get on CNN first. When I did that, then Fortune was very interested in having me write for them. So it was kind of a fun operation. And so that's how I ended up on that. But a lot of people, I've recently had some experiences online where people say they don't trust me because I'm a journalist. And I have to respond that, I'm not just a journalist. I mean, first and foremost, I'm a father and a Christian and a strong conservative who believes in this country and its exceptionalism. And then we get into all the other things like a businessman, a marketer, an entrepreneur, and yes, a journalist. So it's a tough line to tread. It's a tough rope to walk. To be member of the media and still disagree with a lot of what the media does and says.
I know, what are some of the political or not political, but the changes within the media that politics has kind of helped shift? Have you seen some changes since you first started kind of being in media and being on TV and writing for the columns and stuff like that? Have you seen a lot of changes?
I have, and I guess one of the reasons I've seen so many changes is I actually went over to the dark side for a little while, and for 8 years I wrote for the Huffington Post. So I wrote about 750 columns for the Huffington Post. I am the only Christian conservative columnist they'll ever have, and I was doing it to try to change some minds over there. And their audience was their readership is just awful. You know, people who want to yell and curse at me online and make fun of my columns. But you know, from the advent of Fox News in 1995. It's been a great transition and a great ride for conservative media. It's been difficult at times, but it's grown. And right now, conservative media is just beating the daylights out of CNN and MSNBC. These are organizations that sometimes only get 50 or 70,000 people watching them during prime time. So how long it'll be until their advertisers realize that they're being taken to the cleaners by CNN and MSNBC and come over to the more highly watched conservative media like Fox News and Newsmax TV and OAN and even Alex Jones and InfoWars. I think that is a transition that'll be happening soon, because you're just seeing from the New York Times to CNN, it's just all falling down. Nobody trusts them anymore. Nobody listens to them anymore. They don't have any time for them. So that's a very good development, but it's taken a long time and it's been a slow transition.
Yeah, and I've seen another thing too, the rise of not just the influencers, to talk about a product or something like that, but when it comes to like the influencers or the people who are on the ground in the places like North Carolina, what happened with the hurricane, we would have never known a lot of the inside stories of these places after during the aftermath of these places, because we were being told one thing by the media, but it was the citizens and the people who kind of became their own media entities that were kind of relaying these stories. Do you think there's a big place for these type of people starting to kind of be carved out?
Oh, definitely. The influencers, the citizen journalists. It's too expensive for a CNN or for a Fox News, for that matter, to have people on the ground in Black Mountain, North Carolina, or even Asheville, North Carolina, having a news operation, sending a camera crew and audio crew and correspondent down here quickly is something that they're not good at doing. So the citizen journalists like me during Helene, I mean, it was horrendous here. And so I could just go out with my phone and record views, scenes of the carnage and the destruction here, and the homelessness and the suffering and the emotional loss that people were feeling, and do it much better than Jim Acosta from CNN or some roaming correspondent who just came down here and booked a hotel room the night before on the 5th day. I was out on the first day, right after the rain stopped. So I think that, it's a very good thing to have citizen journalists recording things and going to protests and talking to people, because it highlights the stupidity of some of these people who are protesting who don't even know what they're protesting. It's like there's a company called Crowds on Demand. And you can call up and order up people to go and protest something. All you have to do is tell them, well, we hate Donald Trump, so go out and protest. And you get some very kind of low caliber people that way, because all they want is $20 and a sandwich, and they're off protesting for the day. So the citizen journalists really catch these people out at these fake protests. They really document the horrific kinds of natural disasters that we've had, from the fires in Maui or Pacific Palisades, California, to the horrible hurricanes in Florida, and the horrible flooding from Helene in North Carolina. It just goes on and on. There's always a natural disaster every day, and the best people to cover it are the people that live there. And so now that they're armed with what is essentially a camera crew and an audio crew by having their iPhone or their Android with them, it's really opened up news of all kinds to really make it on the air. And the air now is not CNN or Fox News. The air is Twitter or X or Facebook. And so people more and more are getting their information from the social media sites, and I think from podcasts too.
That makes sense. And now for you, what is now right now your Newsmax? What are some of the other places that we'll find your columns, articles, and I know you've been appearing on a lot of podcasts and TV as well.
Well, you can find my columns, some of which are a hoot, on Huffington Post, and you can just do a search, Relentless Bill Robinson or Relentless Bill at HuffPo, and you'll find a lot of my columns. Two of which I'm most proud of, I think, are right before the historic election of Donald Trump in 2016. I wrote them several months before the election. The first one was, "Is Donald Trump the new Ronald Reagan?" And of course he was. And except Reagan on steroids, Reagan on, amped up Reagan. And then the second one was the 5 reasons why Donald Trump will be our next president. You could imagine what that did to the moonbats on the Huffington Post when they read that. So I love stirring things up on Huffington Post. Meanwhile, you can do a search for Relentless Bill on Newsmax and come up with most of my columns for Newsmax. You can also find me anywhere on social media at Relentless Bill.
And what are some of the things that you're like for the future? Like, what is like a big goal? If you had to say a big goal for this year,
a big goal for this year would be to get my own segment and my own overnight call-in TV show on one of the major conservative networks. So that's what I'm working on. I also want to document very clearly who's going to be the next president of the United States after Trump in 2028. Everybody's talking about J.D. Vance. They seem so certain about it. I'm not so certain. I like J.D. Vance. He's won me over with a lot of the ways he speaks, the speech he gave at the Munich Security Conference, and the way he speaks to the media. But I think that my number one gal is Tulsi Gabbard. I think she's going to make it. I interviewed her 3 years ago when she left the Democrat Party, and she hadn't, as far as I know, still hasn't declared herself as a Republican. But at the time, I told her, and she was being a little coy, I told her, "You're going to be running as a Republican within 5 years." Well, little did I know, she'd be working for the Trump administration. That's even better than running as a Republican. So, and the way she's handling this whole Russiagate thing is really epic. And I just like her style. She doesn't want war, and that's what President Trump is so against too. She aligns perfectly with President Trump. She'd be a great extension of President Trump going into 28 to 32, saying, "We don't want any more endless wars. We're not going to tolerate any more endless wars. We're not going to let the deep state or the media drag us into any more endless wars." So I'd like to document her rise, and perhaps Kristi Noem's, perhaps who knows? There's so much time before that happens that I want to sit there and document President Trump's successes, which are so myriad, winning. And so I just want to continue to document that, and also be taking a look at who's going to be the next president of the United States after Trump.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Bill. And we'll definitely have you back very soon. And I want to hear, what you've got going on, because it's always something. I know you're busy. You're very busy.
Thanks very much, Melissa.
Thank you.